Alright, here we go. Windwalker Monk. As usual, we're doing no covenant abilities, no legendaries, no conduits. Ignoring all the Shadowlands crap. Just trying to have a good feel for the class. And this time I'm putting the the damage meters is gonna be on whatchamacallit, current segment. So you can see like pole by pole how we're doing on the damage meters. And then we'll look at the overall damage at the end of the dungeon.
The large one must be the Alpha. Slay it, and the others will scatter.
So yeah, also I'm down here at 201 item level to be appropriate for this heroic dungeon. So yeah, Windwalker Monk plays pretty much the same as it did before. You build chi mostly with Tiger Palm. It's a single target ability. Spends your energy to get 2 chi. And then you want to do Fist of Fury as much as possible. Because Fist of Fury does shitloads of damage, both single target and multi-target. And I completely forgot to summon the tiger. Oh well. Whoops. Let's try to intercept that. I didn't even remember to hit my trinket. But yeah, so
lies deep within the prison. Let none
single target, we want to spend Fist of Fury, same multi-target, basically as much as possible. And then for single target, Rising Sun Kick is great. I forgot. Sorry, Strike of the Windlord is a new thing. I think it's new. Might have been a covenant ability I forgot about or something. But I think it's new. Good for AoE and single target. But yeah, after those bigger things, your next single target one is Rising Sun Kick, which spends 2 chi. And then Blackout Kick spends, whoops. Spends 1 chi. But we have a couple talents that, are important to note. We'll look at those in a second. So yeah, the Rising Sun Kick, we have a talent that crits reduce the cooldown of Fist of Fury. So you do even more ridiculous Fist of Fury damage. And then there's a thing where Blackout Kick reduces the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick. And there's also a talent, I think it's a talent, or maybe it's just built in, where it has a chance to reset the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick. So, yeah. When your Fist of Fury is on cooldown, you generally like to go for the Rising Sun Kicks to hopefully reset it. And if that doesn't work, then you go for the Blackout. It's a Blackout Kick to hopefully reset the Rising Sun Kick. There's also the Rising Sun Kick does good single target damage.
With so many secrets to uncover.
But yeah, you gotta, in between all this stuff, weave in the Tiger Palms to because all this stuff is spending chi. Whoops. I tabbed off of them. We're just saving some cooldowns here for the boss. And yeah.
Let us begin.
So we want to
Confess.
I did not do those properly. But you should basically destroy this boss. I should be away from my team just to be nice. The healer. But yeah, you see, we do lots of good single target damage when we press our buttons. We'll look at that more for the big cooldown stuff later. But yeah, single target. Yeah. And then so for multi-target, we still want to do the Fists of Fury as much as possible. And then we still want to do Rising Sun Kicks generally for
Interrupt my research.
the possibility of resetting the Fist of Fury.
My patience is wearing thin.
But after that,
Even here.
I screwed up. Yeah. But after that, we got the damn spinning crane kick to do our single target damage.
My patience is wearing thin. Light shines.
And I think we'll just kill her.
So much left to discover.
Quickly, mortals! Escape with Sorali!
So yeah. Evoker is pretty tough to really good single target damage on. So it's not really a surprise that we're destroying them on the boss fights. But as you can see, we're still plenty good on the AoE. Because we got Fist of Fury, and then spinning crane kicks okay, but there's a talent that gives you a proc for spinning crane kick does 200% extra damage, I think it is. So when you hear that noise, it's a free spinning crane kick that does triple damage, I think it is. So it's big AoE damage when we get that.
That prisoner belongs to the master. You will not take it.
I require a target.
So yeah, I'm not even like really maximizing my ability usage that well, because I'm trying to talk a bit as well as play the game. But yeah. Lots of AoE and single target damage for the Windwalker Monk.
Stubborn rebels! We'll meet your end!
So yeah, after this we'll look at talent stuff, things that I like and don't like.
Surrender the prisoner!
We need to get the
Your crimes!
fucking tiger out here. We need to do this. Get another one of these. This, another one of these.
The strength of stone! be a testament to the Master's wrath.
Not today, Carl!
What are these guys? Item levels.
Go, mortals! I will hold her off!
Yeah, these guys are just fresh out of the starting zone for the evokers. So there's a world event going on right now to get 252 item level gear fairly easily. So I'm kind of surprised that I'm even getting heroic dungeon groups, because essentially it's slower to level in heroic, or slower to get gear in heroic dungeons than to get it from the event right now. But I'm happy to get groups to be able to demonstrate the class. So yeah, we'll look at all the bosses. Basically, Windwalker does very well single target damage. Like I mentioned earlier, the Voker, unless you've really got the right talents for it and you're using a certain cooldown, which is kind of better for AoE than it is for single target. So it's kind of something you don't really even want to press during boss fights, per se. But so unless you're like really playing the evoker right, though, basically is it's difficult to do single target damage. The evoker is really good at AoE damage. So I'll make a video on that soon. But I'm just saying, for comparison here, I don't think I looked at what the item level of the tank was. I guess he was around similar item level to me, so yeah. Tanks usually do not too good at damage on bosses, but they have fairly good AoE. But it's just generally you basically you want to see your bar be a certain amount longer than the tank's bar to have a good idea of how well you're playing as a DPS. So like for bosses, this is pretty reasonable for comparing different comparing similar item level for a DPS class to a tank class. So yeah, so our boss damage is good, as you can see here. Lots of Fist of Fury, followed by lots of Rising Sun Kick as much as we can. We got Blackout Kick. We got Blackout Kick passive, which is from this Teachings of the Monastery talent down here. Tiger Palm causes your next Blackout Kick to strike an additional time, stacking up to 3. So basically every single time you're Tiger Palming, which you have to do to build your chi up, you're essentially also getting a free Blackout Kick out of it. So the effective damage of Tiger Palm essentially goes up a lot because of that talent. So yeah, that's what that's about. We got Empowered Tiger Lightning from Zwen, the White Tiger. He doesn't do a lot of damage. I don't like him that much. But there's a talent down here where you gain 33% haste for 20 seconds after summoning your Celestial. So our Celestial is Swen the White Tiger. So this is 33% haste buff for 20 seconds, means lots of damage. So that's why it's definitely a button that you want to make sure you're pressing during boss fights. You could press it outside of boss fights also, but most trash packs you will clear in less than that 20 seconds of haste buff. So it's kind of feels bad to press it on trash packs. You just clear the trash packs too quickly. But yeah, since it's a 2-minute cooldown, generally you could use it in a trash pack and it'll be up in time for the next boss. But I generally don't do that. It's if you don't know exactly how the tank's gonna pull things, it's something where you could, if you waste it earlier and then the tank's like, wow, this guy's doing a lot of damage, let me pull a bigger pull the next time, and then you're like, I don't got my cooldowns up now. So it's yeah, one of those things. Anyways, let's get back to here. So then we got the auto attacks. We got Touch of Karma. Touch of Karma is the thing that shields you, and it deals damage that it absorbs back to your target. It's great. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown, but it's great. Use it. Specifically, you want to use it in times where you either know you're going to take damage in a boss fight, because it's like some kind of unavoidable AoE or whatever it is, or sometimes I use it just in really large trash packs where it's there's so much chaos going on that there's a good chance you'll get hit by something accidentally. Also, sometimes there's times where there's just like a caster mob that's just gonna cast on you, or one of those big tanky mobs that like stomps the ground, does party-wide AoE damage. So it's just not so much for dealing extra damage, but more of a help your healer out type of button. Let's see what else we got in here. We got Thunder Fist down here and Strike of the Windlord. So Strike of the Windlord is the ability itself that you use, which does AoE damage. A very significant amount of AoE damage, which is on a 40-second cooldown. So it doesn't end up being a ton of damage in your overall damage. We can go to the overall damage here and look at it real quick. So overall damage 2.7% for Strike of the Windlord. But with the other talent for it, Thunder Fist, for each target that it hits, you get this Thunder Fist buff, which deals extra single target damage on your melee strikes. Now this is it's got some kind of internal cooldown or something, so you can't deal a shitload of damage in like 2 seconds type of thing. So it's got some kind of cooldown, but it does add up to be a very significant amount of damage in total. So you can see here, the Thunder Fist buff actually gave me a total of 4.2% of my total damage. So it actually did more than the initial Strike of the Windlord. So, and that's single target damage, so it can be kind of more useful than the AoE damage in some cases, where you use your Strike of the Windlord on some big pack of monsters, but then you want your Thunder Fists damage to go all on like the tanky monster that's gonna take longest for the group to clear eventually. So it's like good single target damage for that situation. Now on a boss, you're still gonna use Strike of the Windlord because it for 2 chi it's still good damage, but you only get 1 stack of Thunder Fists, assuming the boss has no adds. So on the bosses, your Thunder Fist damage is not as much. Let's go back to looking at our boss damage. See if there's anything else we need to talk about. You will use Spinning Crane Kick sometimes for single target damage because of that proc that I mentioned, where spending chi has a chance to make your next Spinning Crane Kick free and deal an additional 200% damage. So it's one of those things again where yeah, the proc, it's a AoE damage ability, but it's just good for it's good for single target damage as well, like relative to the chi cost. But for 2 chi, it'll be, based on my current stats, 6k damage, single target. Well, I forgot. It's free also. Free is part of the benefit, so it doesn't even cost you 2 chi. Normally it's 2 chi, but when you get that proc, it's free. So it's almost as much as a Rising Sun Kick for damage, but it's free for single target, and then for multi-target it's like an extra good deal for being free, and it's 3 times as much damage as your normal Spinning Crane Kick. So yeah, really good talent there for that. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, I didn't mention enough about the Blackout Kick passive, I think. So from what I've seen, the teachings of the monastery, the extra Blackout Kicks that you get from Tiger's Palms, they seem to all the extra Blackout Kicks seem to also apply to this thing where it reduces cooldowns. So it's like extra good because of that. It's not purely just extra damage, it's also extra cooldown reduction. So yeah, that talent is very important. So yeah. Yeah, before we go to look at the all damage again, the overall damage, let's look at talents, I think. So the regular monk talent tree, I sort of like, I sort of don't like. As with most of the classes, it's much better than the old talent system because you no longer have to pick exclusively between 3 talents. You can pick combinations of talents. Occasionally there's ones like this where you can pick only this one or this one. You can't pick both. But for the most part, you can pick multiple things that you couldn't pick together before, so it's great. But for the Windwalker Monk, the healing stuff along the left of the tree is not really viable. The most you could really get would be you'd have to get the Soothing Mist, which isn't very good for a Windwalker Monk, particularly because the Soothing Mist costs you 15 energy per second. This is a problem. If you look at Vivify, 30 energy for 4,000 healing. Whereas this is 15 energy per second over 6.9 seconds. You get 9,000 healing. So you're basically spending 7 seconds, which is going to cost you 105 energy to get 9,000 healing. Or if we divide by 2, roughly, we're looking at 4,500 healing for 550 energy, basically. 4,500 healing for 50 energy, or compared to Vivify, 4,000 healing for 30 energy. So Soothing Mist on the what are they called? The Mistweaver Monk is a very mana efficient spell, and Vivify is not a mana efficient spell on the Mistweaver Monk, but here it's kind of backwards, where Vivify is more mana efficient than Soothing Mist. This is probably because there's a mechanic on the Mistweaver Monk where Vivify gets like duplicated to your allies that have the Renewing Mist on them. So Vivify is definitely better, a lot stronger on a Mistweaver Monk than a Windwalker Monk. But still, I feel like essentially they made Soothing Mist pretty much non-viable on the Windwalker Monk because of that energy cost. So if you were to get a part in the fight where you didn't need to attack, or like you couldn't attack and you just needed to heal, then you wouldn't even use Soothing Mist, I think, if you had it. It will give you better healing per second if you channel it and cast Vivify while channeling it, of course. But just in general, it's pretty bad. Actually, maybe part of this problem is because of this talent that Vivify healing is increased by 40%, which I have 2 points. So maybe without that talent, the energy cost is more like the healing per energy comparison is more favorable for Soothing Mist, or approximately equal. I don't know, but yeah, I don't like Soothing Mist. So if you could take it to get an extra charge of roll, and possibly the leg sweep cooldown. But other than that, you don't want to go on the left side of the tree for Windwalker. Yeah. So yeah, I get the extra Vivify healing in case I need to heal myself. And if you wanted to instead, you could definitely go for Fortifying Brew over here. I just hate Fortifying Brew because the cooldown is super long, and it's essentially because the cooldown is super long, you can't rely on it in the way that you can with like 1.5 minute cooldown type of things, or even like some classes have like 2 or 3 minute cooldown defensive abilities, and so when you compare that to a 6 minute cooldown, it's seems pretty silly. Yeah, I know there's a talent here to reduce the cooldown to 4 minutes, but 4 minutes is still a really long time. So yeah, I don't like Fortifying Brew. Most of the rest of this is fine. You get Ring of Peace for like being able to interrupt a bunch of casters if you need to, or just zone some enemies away from the tank if the tank is taking too much damage. There's definitely things you can do with that. Use magic is good for defenses. Dampen harm is good for defenses. You could definitely skip paralysis and improve paralysis if you wanted to. For dungeons, you don't really need disable. It's just a single target snare. So it's yeah, definitely things that are not going to be important to some people in here. I would say you really should get you should go down the middle and get Ring of Peace for sure. The utility on it's really good, and that also lets you get the diffuse magic, which is very powerful in certain situations. You want to get Spearhand Strike, that's your interrupt. You want to get you basically have to get Fast Feet. The only reason it's over here, I think, is so that because it's 2 points for 70% damage on Rising Sun Kick. So you're basically forced to get this as a DPS, and you'll most likely get this as a tank as well. I think the reason the amount on here is so high is so that a healer has to commit more if they want to get good single target damage. But yeah, I'll make a separate video for Mistweaver Monks and talk about that more. But yeah. So yeah, you're kind of forced down this path. You're pretty much forced to get these Touch of Death talents, which I hate. The talents are good. Like you can't ignore them type of good. But I don't like the concept in general of Touch of Death. I just wish they'd remove the ability from the game. So, but yeah, you can't really ignore these talents. To get down here, this is your damage totem thing that you throw on the ground. I didn't use it very much. The 2-minute cooldown for a long duration AoE damage thing. 30 seconds duration. So you're not really gonna prioritize pressing this button on bosses, but trash packs usually die faster than 30 seconds, so it's like you pretty much never get very good value out of it. So I don't really like it. You do get some damage, some AoE damage out of this Resonant Fists talent though. So yeah, you pretty much have to go this way for Windwalker Monk. You're not gonna get the Soothing Mist channeling totem thing over here. You could maybe get the Black Ox statue, but like my thinking is, as far as Dragonflight, when you're max level, you should have a few more points in the talent tree, so maybe you get Black Ox statue. I'm not really sure, but you won't skip damage to go get that. But I tried Black Ox statue on Mistweaver Monk, because I've never been a fan of the Soothing Mist Totem thing, and the statue was not too tanky. Maybe it's better on Brewmaster Monk. I haven't played with it yet on Brewmaster Monk, but it's definitely not I played a lot of Brewmaster Monk in BFA, and the Black Ox statue was one of my favorite talents because you throw it down in a monster trash pack, and then you let the statue tank like half the mobs for you while you tank the other half. So you take a lot less damage while that statue is still alive, basically. But yeah, when I tried with the Mistweaver, it seemed to be a lot weaker. So I don't know. I'll need more testing on that. But yeah, Monk Tree feels like, for the most part, you pretty much have to get certain things in here. And you could definitely get Fortifying Brew, but that's essentially the only change you might make to this. Except for PvP, this is essentially a PvP button over here, so you could go over there for PvP, and you might do... PvP is probably a better argument for going up here to get the roll, the extra charge of roll or Chi Torpedo. So yeah. Alright, so Windwalker talents, the more important thing. So, as you saw, Fist of Fury is a lot of damage. You want to get lots of Fist of Fury talents, so Fist of Fury. So yeah, you get Fist of Fury up here. You get 20% Fist of Fury damage here. You get 15% Fist of Fury damage here, and Fist of Fury damage has a chance to refund Chi. Let's see. I'm getting Blackout Kick and Rising Sun Kick, increased damage of your next Fist of Fury. Stacking up to 10 times. And when Fist of Fury ends, the crit chance of Rising Sun Kick is increased by 40% for 5 seconds. Which Rising Sun Kick crits reduce the cooldown of Fist of Fury by 4 seconds. So, lots of Fist of Fury stuff. It's great. Now, looking at the tree, you can see that we could skip this point, but this point is got a whole bunch of stuff in it, so we take that point. We're taking Touch of Karma. We're coming down here because we want to get this Spinning Crane Kick stuff. Spinning Crane Kick's damage is increased by 18% for each unique target you struck in the last 20 seconds with your single target abilities. Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, or Rising Sun Kick. Stacks up to 5 times. So this is sometimes you'll when you get to a new group, you'll kind of tab target around to Tiger Palm and Blackout Kick and Rising Sun Kick different enemies to get the stacks of this up so that your Spinning Crane Kick does more damage. So that's a strong talent. Blackout kick damage, strikes 2 additional targets. That's great. Yeah. So essentially AoE damage stuff here. And then the one I talked about multiple times already. You get the free spinning crane kick that does 200% extra damage as a proc when you spend chi. So that's great. Just listen for that. I don't know how you describe it, kind of a swish sound or whatever. Yeah. So good stuff over there. Flying Serpent Kick is good mobility, not super important as far as playing the class goes. But you have to get it to either get Storm, Earth, and Fire or Serenity. So I use Serenity. I like how it lets you do more Fists of Fury, basically. Storm, Earth, and Fire is basically just a fairly simple damage buff as far as the mechanics of it. Whereas Serenity is a damage buff, but all your chi spenders are free and cooldown 100% faster. So you have so when you do this, instead of costing 3 chi, your Fist of Fury is free. You can just use it whenever. And then of course you use your Rising Sun kick, and if that crits, then you get the 4-second cooldown reduction on your Fist of Fury. But because of your chi spenders with Serenity cooldown faster, then that 4-second cooldown reduction is sort of more like 8-second cooldown reduction on your Fist of Fury. So basically your Fist of Fury ends up coming up faster because of that. And then similar with the Blackout Kick, where Blackout Kick reduces cooldowns of Rising Sun Kick and Fist of Fury by 1 second. Well, basically during Serenity, that's 2 seconds worth of cooldown reduction. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, you do you do like 3 Fists of Fury usually if things go well in a Serenity. So it's a lot of damage in a fairly short amount of time. So great single target damage. Also plenty good for multiple targets. But typically I just use it on bosses. Let's see. Yeah. Then like I said, I don't really like Swen that much. He doesn't do that much. Without, you have to get this talent here for Swen strikes your enemies for empowered lightning, dealing 10% of the damage you or your summons have dealt to those targets in the last 4 seconds. So it's sort of like 10% extra damage while Swen is up. So that talent's pretty good, and you have to get it for this talent here, which I said, and then you want the 33% haste for 20 seconds after you summon Swen. So there's synergy down here that makes you want to get Swen. And yeah, I already talked about this talent. Rising Sun Kick reduces the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick critical strikes reduce the cooldown of Fist of Fury by 4 seconds. So yeah, that's that stuff down there. We talked about this one. Tiger Palm causes your next Blackout Kick to strike an additional time. That's great. Let's see. Rising Sun Kick has a 25% chance to trigger a second time. That's not so important, but you have to get it to get Strike of the Windlord and Thunderfist, which I talked about already, so that stuff's good. And the other talent I'm getting here is each successive attack that triggers combo strikes in a row grants 1% damage, stacking up to 6 times. Now, I know I have not yet talked about combo strikes. What's combo strikes? Combo strikes is your mastery. Mastery combo strikes. Your abilities deal 23.8% more damage when they are not a repeat of the previous ability. Obviously, when you have more gear and more mastery, then this number goes up. So yeah, it was more like 30% when I had all my gear on, but with the reduced item level to be appropriate for a heroic dungeon, 23.8%. So because of that, you pretty much never want to press the same ability twice in a row. The ones you might be tempted to press twice in a row are Tiger Palm. You might be tempted to press twice in a row to get your energy, your chi up faster. So like at the start of a fight, you might be inclined to press that twice so that you have enough chi for a Fists of Fury. That's okay. Generally though, what I do is I Tiger Palm, and then I will Rising Sun Kick, and then I'll Tiger Palm, and then I'll Blackout Kick, and then I'll Tiger Palm, and then at that point I have 3 chi to spend on the Fists of Fury, and then I can Tiger Palm, and if Rising Sun Kick's not back up yet, we go back to Blackout Kick, and then Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick. So there's a lot of weaving back and forth on those abilities to always have this this damage buff on all the abilities that I use. That's generally what I'm doing. Now so doing that with this ability, this talent here, means I basically have a permanent 6% damage buff. So it's a pretty good talent. So yeah, let's look at talents I'm not getting. So Feline Stomp is the Arden Wield, what do you call it? Covenant ability. Shadowlands, I haven't looked at the exact numbers, how different this one is, but it functions the same. It's a fairly weak amount of damage and healing in a big AoE, and then your abilities have a chance to reset the cooldown on it when you are in that spot. So because it's AoE damage and healing, not that great on bosses, except might be alright in like raids where you'll get good value out of the healing. But for the most part, I don't like this ability. And also in raids, you'll be in the same spot to be able to proc it, whereas in dungeons, if you clear the trash pack in like 20 seconds or 15 seconds, then you're missing out on some of your ability to make the full use of this Feline Stomp thing. So I don't like Feline Stomp. Bone Dust Brew works as sort of a flat percent damage buff, basically. I don't like it as much as these talents here. I don't think it's terrible. But the overall mechanics of it, I don't really like it, and I don't really want another button to press. So I'm not going over there for that. Whirling Dragon Punch is pretty good. I used to use this in BFA. It's AoE damage that doesn't cost any chi, and it's a decent amount of AoE damage. It's basically like 2 spinning crane kicks worth of damage. But it's only usable while Fist of Fury and Rising Sun Kick are on cooldown. So it's pretty good. Not amazing. But as you can see, my action bars are fairly full. The only slot I have open with where I have everything placed right now is Shift 6. And I don't want to press Shift 6 for something that's going to be like part of my main damage rotation. I would have to definitely change something up in here to really get that ability on my bar. The problem is I play so many different classes that I have certain things in certain places. Even if I'm not using them very much on this class, I want the similar things, the same spots on other classes. So, for example, I have Taunt right here on Y, which is definitely like a better spot to have it, for example, because it's right next to T, the Rising Sun Kick. So you do like Fist of Fury, Rising Sun Kick, and then right next to Rising Sun Kick, you have your Whirling Dragon Punch, and it's a very like natural way to move my finger from the T to the Y type of thing. Or if I put it on B down here, B is a very easy button for me to press, but the thing is, B is where I have my single target snare ability on a lot of classes, whether that's like hamstring on a warrior or what's another one, well, you get the idea. So I could move some abilities around to put Whirling Dragon Punch on here, but I don't really want to. So yeah, that's how it is for now. I might change my mind at some point. For example, I might even put it here on R. R would be a good spot. And instead, because I use E usually as a defensive button. So here on the Windwalker Monk, you have this Expel Harm ability, which I think really sucks in its current iteration. It's got a little more use for the Mistweaver Monk, because while you're channeling Soothing Mist, your Expel Harm will also heal your Soothing Mist target. But overall, it's a very weak heal. It's like 5% of your health heal, and it deals damage that is 10% of the healing amount. So it deals like 0.5% of your health of damage, basically. It's really, really weak for damage. I don't know why it's not just like 100% of the amount healed as damage. But that's what they went with. There's a couple talents for it, but they're not very good. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of Expel Harm. It does generate 1 chi, but and so like for purely generating chi, Expel Harm gives you better chi per energy than Tiger Palm. Because Tiger Palm is 50 energy for 2 chi. It's got 3 chi on here, but that's from a talent thing. That's the Power Strikes thing. So 50 energy for 2 chi is 25 energy per chi, whereas Expel Harm is 15 energy per 1 chi. So it doesn't sound that bad, but the thing is, Tiger Palm does damage itself, but also Tiger Palm, with the teachings of the monastery, makes the blackout kick hit an additional time. And because of the way you're like weaving, pressing buttons back and forth and stuff, I'm not currently having any situations where I'm running out of energy. So part of that may be from talent choices, such as the free spinning crane kicks that come up every now and again. During that time, I'm just gaining energy. So it's possible that a different build might be running out of energy, but currently I'm not running out of energy, so there's no real incentive to use Expel Harm. So I don't like it. So what I'm trying to get around to saying is I could do that and then put Touch of Karma here, and that'll match better with some of my other characters as far as putting the defensive ability on E, and then I could have the Whirling Dragon Punch on R. But yeah, for now, I'm not using Whirling Dragon Punch. I do think it's a good ability though. So the last talents to look at are Rising Sun Kick damage over here is not very good. You just have to get it if you want to get Phalanx Stomp. Spinning Crane Kick damage over here is pretty good. I do plan on getting that on the way to getting Touch of Death strikes up to 4 additional nearby targets. As I level up and get a few more points to spend in the tree. So those look good. This one here, abilities that activate combo strikes reduce the cooldown of Invoke Swen the White Tiger by 0.1 seconds, and Swen's damage is increased by 10%. Like I mentioned earlier, Swen's damage is pretty weak. I don't know if this includes the empowered Tiger Lightning thing, but it still seems pretty weak. Reducing the damage, or reducing the cooldown by 0.1 seconds, you have to look at it as best case scenario, you're just using all instant cast abilities which have a 1 second global cooldown. So best case scenario, this reduces the cooldown of Swen the White Tiger by 10%. So 10% of a 2-minute cooldown is 10% of 120 seconds, which is 12 seconds. So it's still gonna be 1 minute 48 seconds worth of cooldown if you get this cooldown reduction talent. So that talent seems really bad to me. Chi Spenders increase the damage of your next Crackling Jade Lightning by 100% and reduce its cost by 5%, stacking up to 20 times. So yeah, you could have 21 times damage on your Crackling Jade Lightning, which is by default extremely weak. I don't even know why it costs so much energy, because it's extremely weak. the only times you really use this are to get aggro from a target that's far away, like to pull something, or you could use it if something's melee attacking you to have a chance of it knocking them back. It's a really dumb mechanic, but I have actually seen it used in an arena. So it was pretty cool. But because it's a chance to knock them back, it's like you're just praying at that point. So and generally, Crackling Jade Lightning is a garbage ability. Even with this talent here, it's gonna be sort of like the shaman when you get the whatchamacallit. What's that thing on the shaman called? Lightning lasso. It'll be sort of like lightning lasso, except you can't move while casting it, and it doesn't stun the target. So basically, it's still gonna be fairly shitty. You could use it in a situation where the boss is like casting a big AoE and you have to roll out of it and wait for it to finish casting. So you have so if you had the talent, then you could do some amount of range damage while you wait to get back into the fight. But yeah, for the most part, kind of a meme talent. The one down here, Skyreach, sounds interesting. Tiger Palm gives you a 50% crit chance for 6 seconds on the target, which can't be applied more than once every minute per target. So this sounds pretty awesome as far as dashing around to different targets and having a very high crit chance on them. I haven't tried it. It's yeah, it's potentially really good. I just don't like the 1 minute cooldown thing on it. So I will try it at some point. Could be pretty good. I'm not sure how good it actually is. Yeah. So yeah. So out of all my talent points here, if I were to get rid of one, it would definitely be this one here for Touch of Death. So like if I wanted to do Skyreach, I would take that one out and spend it there, because all these other ones are much more important. Whereas this one, Touch of Death, can be used a second time before its cooldown's triggered. That's pretty good. As far as just casting it twice when the boss is at really low health and deals a bunch of damage. So I did that on some of the bosses. Apparently not all the bosses. Thought I did it on some of the bosses. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just used it on trash. Anyways, I definitely used it on trash multiple times. So let's go look at the overall data. So Touch of Death ended up being 5.4% of my damage. It would have been like 3% of my total damage. If I had if I was not using that talent. So it is like a couple percent overall damage increase in a dungeon. If you're killing bosses too fast, sometimes you don't even manage to get the cast off, because there's the way Touch of Death works is there's like a it's not checking every frame basically for whether or not you can cast it on the target. So if a boss is dying quickly, it might not allow you to cast Touch of Death fast enough to be able to get use out of it, basically. It's kind of a really scuffed ability in that way. I really wish they would fix that. That problem has been around for a while. I think it's like the server... I think it's something like the server tells you can cast Touch of Death type of thing. Because you'll definitely see times where like the enemies, the boss's health... boss's health will go under 15%, but your Touch of Death isn't castable right away. It like you have to wait like a second, and since you don't want to wait a second, you end up pressing some other ability, and then you're on the global cooldown potentially while the when the Touch of Death comes up, or you press like Fist of Fury, and then the Touch of Death comes up, and you're like, well, I'm not going to cancel my Fist of Fury to cast Touch of Death. This Fist of Fury is still a bunch of damage, and then the boss ends up dying before you actually get your Touch of Death out. Or maybe you get one Touch of Death out and you don't get both touches of death out. So yeah, it's Touch of Death has problems with the way it works. Never mind that I just don't like the concept of it. But it's still a strong talent. There's one up here for Touch of Death where you can reduce the cooldown of it more. I don't really like it that much. If you wanted to get this talent here, though, every 2 chi you spend reduces cooldown of Serenity or Storm, Earth, and Fire by 0.3 seconds. This is fairly weak. I also find it really strange that they have this talent here, because you can get this talent without getting these. So yeah, it's a weird placement for this talent. But realistically, you're never gonna skip these, so whatever. But the math just does not work out very well for how much cooldown reduction you get from this. Similar to Zwen. In this case, because you have to spend 2 chi to reduce the cooldown by 0.3 seconds. But you're only gaining 2 chi to be able to spend it every so often from your Tiger Palm. Because you're doing like Tiger Palms, which gain chi, and then you have sometimes your free spinning crane kicks that aren't spending chi, so it's like I don't think this works out to be very good. Over here, maximum energy is okay. You have to get this if you want to get Jade Ignition, which is your spinning crane kick does a bunch of extra damage after Fists of Fury. I tried it. It's not that great. I'd say it's bad in the context of you have to get this maximum energy talent as well to get to it, because that's not very good either. So yeah, those talents kind of suck. Blackout Kick, crit chance, and crit damage are not very good, because Blackout Kick does not end up being a terribly great percentage of your overall damage. if this was Rising Sun Kick, then it would have good synergy with the one over here where Rising Sun Kick crits reduce the cooldown of Fist of Fury. But since it's not, I don't like that talent. Tiger Palm damage is very weak. I don't know why anyone would ever get this talent. And I think that's it except for Rushing Jade Wind. I liked Rushing Jade Wind in BFA. I don't like it anymore. I like it from the perspective of the spending chi as a chance to make your spinning crane kick free and deal additional damage. So it's like this can proc this type of thing. But my current damage rotation feels good, and you can see here it's 1 chi and the damage is similar to spinning crane kick, but it's over a period of 5.2 seconds. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's a button worth pressing, but it's not so much more efficient or like so much better than something that you already have, in this case spinning crane kick, as far as AoE damage goes. So it's not that great. That's why I don't like it anymore. Yeah, that's about it on talents. We'll talk a little bit more about AoE damage. Rick, I've been trying to not make these videos so dang long, but it looks like this one's pretty long again. But yeah, so for AoE damage rotation stuff, like I said, outside of whether you're gonna use your Serenity or Storm, Earth, and Fire, and your Swen the White Tiger for if you're trying to do really big burst AoE damage, and your Trinket, of course. Your main things for doing AoE damage are your Fist of Fury. You're going to use your Strike of the Windlord, assuming you have that talent. You're going to use your White Tiger statue if you want, but see what my White Tiger statue damage ended up being, because I didn't use it very much. It ended up being 1% of my total damage. If I used it more, then it could have been better, but yeah. The Windwalker Monk just blows things away pretty well. As far as, yeah, I think Windwalker Monk is essentially a top tier DPS spec at the moment, basically. Yeah. So yeah, apart from those big cooldown buttons, you're using Fist of Fury as much as possible. You're using Strike of the Windlord as much as possible. You are Rising Sun Kick in hopes that it crits to give you the cooldown reduction of Fist of Fury. Or you don't necessarily have to do that. You could just do spinning crane kicks. Spinning crane kicks will probably be better in a lot of situations. Depends on how many enemies there are. If there's more enemies, then because spinning crane kick is itself an AoE damage ability, then it's probably better than Rising Sun kicking to reduce Fist of Fury cooldown. So, yeah. We'll do lots of spinning crane kicks. You'll get those free spinning crane kick procs, which are great. Generally, you still need to weave in some of these other abilities, though, to keep the combo strikes thing going. If you don't do the combo strikes thing, like if you cast spinning crane kick and it procs the free spinning crane kick, then if you were to cast that free spinning crane kick right away, you don't get your combo strikes of 23.8% extra damage. So it's up to you. Sometimes the play will be to say screw the combo strikes. I'm going to cast that because there's enough enemies that it makes more sense to do that. Other times you want to press a different button before your spinning crane kick. Yeah. Yeah. As far as other abilities goes, Windwalker Monk hasn't really changed here in the Dragonflight pre-patch. You still got your leg sweep. You got your Tiger's Lust up here, which is a sorry, so the leg sweep's the AoE stun. Tiger's Lust is a single target 70% move speed buff for 6 seconds. So you can cast it on yourself or on an ally. Either way, pretty good. You got your rolls, of course, unless you use the talent to get Chi Torpedo instead, which sends you farther, but I'm not a fan of it. You got your Diffuse Magic and Dampen Harm defensive things up here. Those are great. I talked about those briefly already on the talent tree. Although if you're not familiar with what they do, Dampen Harm reduces damage that you take based on how big of a hit it is. So for certain bosses that deal some kind of really big damage, it'll decrease more of that damage. So it's really great in certain situations where you know you're about to take a big hit of damage. Diffuse Magic greatly reduces magic damage you take, 60%. But also magic debuffs on you, it will remove. So again, for certain situations, very strong. We talked about Flying Serpent Kick to get around sometimes. Great mobility. Ring of Peace, which knocks enemies out of it. I don't think I used it during the dungeon. But yeah, it's pretty good. And you got your Taunt. Your Touch of Karma thing I talked about already. Paralysis is the instant cast CC ability, which is pretty good. It's got a fairly significant cooldown on it, though. If somebody breaks it, you can't cast it again for a while. And yeah, let's see. Got our Poison and Disease Cleanse is great. Got your little teleport thing. Yeah. Basically, I think the Windwalker Monk is currently pretty awesome. Plays well, and and it's very strong as far as damage goes. So yeah, this is our overall damage for the dungeon. You can see we really smashed that dungeon. Even though we were on a reasonable item level. Yeah. So yeah, Windwalker Monk, definitely something I plan to be leveling up here in Dragonflight. Certainly one of my top choices for DPS right now.